All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you're at. Welcome to the Trevor Good Evening Show, broadcasting live from Emeryville, California. We have Brother Lewis Pry, who I believe is in the Netherlands. And Jim, you are in Australia, correct?
Correct. Good morning,
All right.
Trevor. Good morning, viewers, listeners. Good morning, everyone across West Papua. Good morning, Lewis. Good morning, everyone streaming into this.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. We're going to ask everyone, please share this broadcast today. We're talking about what the Indonesian government has been doing to the Papua community since the 1960s. We're talking about outright human rights violations. We're going to show you some pictures, some very dreadful things to actually look at, but these are human lives being impacted right now as we speak. Please share this feed. Welcome to the Trevor Goody from the show, which today's show is brought to you by the one and only Copa Numada. Right now, you have a chance to win a bicycle if you purchase a ticket through them. They're going to have a game in Miami, Florida in July of 2024, and we want to invite you guys to purchase a ticket. The biggest thing that will be won is a 2007 Honda. Okay, get a chance to win one of those. You could also get a chance to win a free motorcycle. So there's information right there. If you're interested in supporting Corporate Namada, you're actually supporting the future, you're supporting the youth. Do the best that we can in understanding what that is. So once again, welcome to the Trevor Goody from the show. Brother Lewis, please introduce yourself.
All right, thanks, Brother Trevor. Yeah, so my name is Louis Pry. I actually live in Melbourne, Australia, not in Netherlands. Yeah, I'm very passionate about helping our people in Papua, especially those who are oppressed. And I think human rights of everyone is very important, including the people of Palestine too, as well, who are going through a terrible situation as well. And yeah, I'm so happy and glad to be part of this show this morning.
Thank you, brother Lewis. Jim Aubrey, welcome aboard, man. I've been looking for a brother like yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ever since I got involved with this West Papuan movement, I've been looking for Caucasian brothers and sisters who have the gall to stand up. And look, I'll give you a round of applause because it's not easy to stand up in a political situation like this one, where the United States is involved, where the United Nations is involved, and there's corrupt governing bodies involved. So, Jim, please introduce yourself and welcome to the Trevor Good Evening Show.
Thank you for that, Trevor. Kind words. My name is Jim Aubrey. I represent Genocide Rebellion, and I'm a member of the Free West Papua International Coalition. I'm currently involved in an appeal to the Australian government, which is not so much an appeal, it's a letter of demand requesting a royal commission to investigate the Australian government's role in preventing decolonisation in West Papua, and in preventing that by choosing to join with a conspiracy that was started by David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, US State Department, and the United Nations Secretary General U Thant to prevent the decolonisation. That picture there, Trevor, is the signing of the contract of work for Freeport, and that was in 1967, 2 years before the act of free choice, which really means it was not going to be an act of free choice, that it was already concluded, that a foregone conclusion that there would never be independence for the indigenous population of West Papua, Western New Guinea at the time. Foregone conclusion. And you know, these people who were involved in this conspiracy, and our government, which was involved then, and there are other allegations in the letter of demand because it's a very large letter. It's 120 pages. It reads like a style of criminal indictment, alleging actions of criminal governance in 1969 by preventing two West Papuan leaders to reach the United Nations, Now, that's contrary to our Commonwealth Criminal Code. There they are these two West Papuan leaders who requested the assistance of the Australian government to reach the United Nations prior to the Act of Free Choice, to inform the General Assembly of the relentless crimes against humanity that were taking place, and that there was not going to be a fair and legal act of self-determination.
And when you look at the picture, it says refugees, West Papuan refugees. So they wanted to speak up on what's going on in West Papua. They sought the support of the Australian government. How did they end up being refugees?
They were placed under detention on Manus Island at the request of the Indonesian government and the American government. And this is not simply me saying this. I've provided the documentation in the appendices in that letter of demand. It's in the government's own words in their journals of correspondence for the 1960s of Papua New Guinea. It's in their own words, and that's what they did. They put them on Manus Island to wait until after the election. They did. Well, you know, if this happened to you, Trevor, or you, Lewis, or I today, would I suppose it boils down to a simple question. Why and how did people like this, at the government at the time, and Freeport signing that contract of work, the involvement of David Rockefeller, the involvement of Henry Kissinger, why did they think that the world was their oyster, and that the collateral damage of
what we're talking about is white privilege. That's why and white privilege persists to this very day, where there's this white savior complex. That's one aspect of it, but this empowering people of color has always been the mission at hand. But let's go back to the beginning of how all of this started. Lewis, we want to give you the floor real quick so that you could go ahead and tell us, how did all of this start?
Yeah, so I think the Dutch government or the Netherlands government actually had a 10-year plan to prepare West Papua for independence, and I think they were actually on the right track. And then somehow they diverted that original plan because there was a pressure from the U.S. government and Indonesia. So they actually give in to the demand, and which they're not supposed to. And without the consent of the West Papuan people, this New York agreement came about. And one thing funny or strange is that, like, when this New York agreement was held in America, New York, they never involved the people of West Papua. So during the time, I think the Dutch or the Netherlands government has already installed a Papuan parliament called New Guinea Rad. So you have the elected Papuan leaders who already, are the voice of the Papuan people, and they were supposed to be part of this New York agreement. So they were not given the opportunity to be part of that agreement, to basically have the say on future of the West Papuan people. So the New York agreement, which was held in America, was between the colonizers themselves without the involvement of the indigenous leaders. So this is more like a slap on the face of the West Papuan people, and basically denying their rights to self-determination and independence. So prior to that, prior to the 1969 referendum or Act of Free Choice, you can see that there's already a conspiracy to deny the people of West Papua the right to independence. So in 1967, the American company Freeport and the Indonesian government had already signed this contract for the Freeport company or mine to operate in West Papua. So basically, like West Papua is not really part of Indonesia yet. So how could they be possible? So it's really a betrayal and a denial in of the people of West Papua, basically the right to self-determination. So yeah, that's how I see and
Okay.
how.
So let's talk a little bit about the act of free choice. I'm going to read this a little bit. The act of free choice was a controversial plebiscite held between 14th of July and the 2nd of August 1969, in which 1,000 people were selected by the Indonesian military in Western New Guinea, voted unanimously in favor of Indonesian control. Once again, just like you said, Papuans were not a part of that decision-making process. The event was mentioned by the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2504 without giving an opinion whether it was complied with the authorized New York Agreement. And Jim, you could speak a little bit more on the New York Agreement in a little bit, and without giving whether it was an act of self-determination and referred to and described in the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1514 and 1541 respectively. The event sometimes disparagingly referred to as the act of no choice. So why was it called the act of free choice, Brother Lewis?
Yes. So in reality, I think on in 1962, September 30th September 1962, I might not be correct, but I think there was a what they call they had another meeting again in Rome, Italy, and that's called Rome Agreement. So that particular meeting called Rome Agreement was actually kind of like a plan to divert from the original plan, which is which was discussed in New York, where there's supposed to be a referendum, and you will have every adult Papuans over the age of 18 would participate. So that Rome Agreement basically it's sort of they're trying to change the whole plan about what's going to happen in the 1969 referendum. So as we can see recently in West Papua, the people of West Papua actually commemorate that particular day, Rome Agreement as well, which is, they said that was actually a betrayal of West Papua's right to self-determination, where they kind of like changed the whole plan which supposed to take place in 1969. So basically, U.S. was behind Indonesia to make sure that 1969 referendum is totally in favor of Indonesia.
So Jim, first there was the New York Agreement, and the Rome Agreement followed after the New York Agreement. I want to be clear on that.
Trevor, it's all public relations and it's all meaningless. It's all designed to subvert the Charter of the United Nations. It's all designed to prevent the decolonisation process of Western New Guinea. Just let me read out a couple of paragraphs in their own words. And this is from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Australia Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Volume 26, Item 303, First Assistant Secretary, Defence Division, Department of External Affairs. And it's several pages long. I'm just going to read out two paragraphs that are attitudes of other countries. The Indonesians have expressed the hope, verbatim quote, point 5, the Indonesians have expressed the hope, particularly that the two, and this is Clem and Wim, that the two should not leave the territory. Recently, they have re-emphasised this hope, at least until the act of free choice has been completed. Point 6, our embassy at Washington has the impression that the United States hopes that Australia will be able to obstruct for several months the departure of the two from the territory of Papua New Guinea. The Netherlands Foreign Ministry has also expressed the hope that we will be able to find means of avoiding granting travel facilities to them. It believes their visit to New York could have an unsettling effect at the United Nations and would be bound to attract attention in the Dutch press with resulting pressures on the Dutch government. Now, this is in direct contradiction to international obligations, international covenants, the UN Charter. It's also in contradiction to the history of the Australian administration of Papua New Guinea. And it's interesting to note, and let me just find this, please. Just give me 10 seconds. It's another of these documents.
No worries at all. Welcome to the Trevor Good Evening Show, everyone. We're talking about Free West Papua. Welcome to the Trevor Good Evening Show. If you don't know what's going on in the Pacific Islands, in the region called West Papua, just Google it up yourself and you will see some of the worst human rights atrocities happening right now in 2024, believe it or not. Jim, did you find that spot that you were looking for?
Yes, Australia is not at present, point 12, Australia is not at present under any legal obligation to readmit them to the territory of Papua New Guinea. The humanitarian principles which led us to grant refuge status in the first place do not appear to require us to permit the refugees to use territory of Papua New Guinea as a base from which to conduct an international campaign against Indonesian actions in West Irian. Now, I won't bog us down in all these documents, but the Australian administration of Papua New Guinea mentions, and this is in the same volume, mentions that the determination, self-determination, has to be applied by universal suffrage. This is in their own words. Universal suffrage. And I believe the New York Agreement stated that as well. But this was subverted by the Indonesians. And you know, it really is very simple, Trevor. You have an Indigenous people. They have the right to decolonisation under the UN Charter. And the UN under UTHANT has given that right to an act of self-determination to an invading occupation, brutal, barbaric occupation force.
Right.
Indonesia. Does that make sense to you?
No, it doesn't make it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. But again, we're talking about 1969. Where colonization has come to a peak and they have to continue to subdivide the territories, right? And now you go from Dutch hands into the hands of the Indonesian government. And at the end of the day, as long as the Papuans didn't have self-determination, that was the ultimate goal, Jim. You
know, geopolitical convenience, it's not an excuse. And time is not an excuse. Economic exploitation, plunder, it's not an excuse. And time for that is not an excuse either. Right. Give me just one moment, please. I'm going to read out a paragraph by OPM leader Jeffrey P. Bomanak. This was included in the letter of demand, and it concerns financial compensation and atonement. And the last time I spoke with Jeffrey, when we were working on this letter of demand together, Jeffrey said we need to appeal to the Rockefeller Foundation. We need to appeal to their hearts and souls, because maybe there's some really decent people now amongst them. Maybe they don't want this legacy, this horrible legacy, which has led to their philanthropic capacity. This is what Jeffrey has to say. There is no amount of wealth on the earth that can compensate for one woman being raped and having her private parts hacked out with a machete. That happened in October the 11th, 2023. Not even the combined wealth from every company that has profited and is profiting from the denial of justice and freedom to West Papua can compensate for every life lost and every pain suffered. That suffering, that pain has been a daily ordeal. However, the sons and daughters of their fathers can atone. Even at this late stage, they can atone for the sins of their fathers. Your wealth, even the capacity for philanthropy, has come from the resources of West Papua and the suffering and slaughter of West Papuans. So I urge the current members of the Rockefeller family, I urge Henry Kissinger, who was still alive at the time, I urge any surviving members of Youthant, I urge the board members and the shareholders of Freeport McMoran and other relevant mining companies and every leading diplomat and representative involved in the conspiracy to prevent the decolonisation and independence of our nation state sovereignty. The contracts with Suharto, a mass murderer, and with subsequent Indonesian governments has resulted in hundreds of thousands of fatalities, disenfranchised and massacred over and over again and again. Poverty, apartheid, living and dying in jungles. Justice has no use-by date. We will reach freedom. An act of atonement, many acts of atonement will be well received by my people. That's the last statement I received from Jeffrey P. Bomanuck, the OPM Chairman Commander.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We have Brother Hank Rumbewa with us. Brother Hank, please, welcome to the Trevor Good Evening Show. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what your role is with the OPM.
Thank you, Brother Trevor, and also thank you, Jim Aubrey and Brother Louis from Melbourne. Yeah, my name is Hank Theo Rumbewas. So from the name, you can tell that I inherit a colonial boundary, inherit the Dutch names. So Hank is from Hendrikus. Rumbewas is the Melanesian name, as we are black people from the South Pacific. So Rumbewas means a family house, like any other indigenous people. We are all cousins, brothers and sisters living in one house as a Melanesian culture of black people in the South Pacific. Now, my role on the Free Papua movement, I was born in 1956, so I'm reaching 67. My father was one of the early fighters for Free Papua movement in the area of known as Biak. We started it from there and then moved to Manokwari. Some of the early freedom fighters like Awom, Permenas Awom, and also Melkianos Awom from Biak. They are all uncles and also brothers. So I grew up in Biak. The revolution of Free Papua movement was part of my upbringing. As my father, as soon as the Indonesian invaded West Papua, my father was sent to prison from 1963 to 75. So I visited my father and I live along with some of the early struggles and they were murdered, such as Arnold Tapp, the guy that, an anthropologist that they murdered, and Teus Lewai. And I've been working with the Free Papua movement formally since I came to Australia in 1983. Inside the country, I work with students and I work with establishing United Liberation Movement for West Papua in Vanuatu. And I attended a number of conferences to take the issue of West Papua in Geneva and also as an observer under the representation of the government of Vanuatu and also Solomon Islands to United Nations. So I got the background there, and I wish that with my involvement, with my experience, I could share something with the support of you, Trevor, and
Yes.
to educate people in general. Thank you.
No, Mr. Hank, can you speak to us a little bit about autonomy? Because there's something called autonomy, and there's another thing called self-determination. And we as Papuans, because I claim to be a Papuan now, I am now a Papuan. You are me, and I am you. We have been pursuing self-determination, but what we were bestowed with is something called autonomy. Can you speak to us about the benefits of that autonomy or disbenefits?
Right. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Here, I show you a book. It is in Indonesian language, but they've already translated into English, a Bill of Law of the Republic of Indonesia for special autonomy. Now, earlier you have mentioned that West Papua is considered to be, since Indonesia took the territory as part of it in 1963, they implement what they call Repelita. So a plan for 5 years block to develop the area considered to be backwards. They consider that the Dutch didn't do anything in the territory, and therefore they have to develop the area. So we only have one province, which is based in Hollandia or Jayapura at the time. And slowly, because the expansion of the migrants into Papua, they knew that the country or the natural resources, and that's how West Papua transferred into become a part of Indonesia, because the Dutch very well mapped the natural resources, the gold deposit in what we know as Freeport now. So America, like any other in the history that we have now, all over the world, they have the interest in the Middle East, they get into it. In Africa, I'm so glad that recently the French government, not the new one, the president admitted how the resources they have taken from Africa to support the economy of the France. So in some way,
Yeah, and what you're talking about is, we invited Dr. Arikana to be a part of this conversation because what you just mentioned right now has a lot to do with her. Dr.
okay.
Where she was a part of the AU, and when she exposed that France takes an approximate $500 billion out of the continent of Africa every year, she was kicked out of the AU.
And that's exactly we begin to. I mean, English language is a foreign language to us, but thank God we struggle with a little vocabulary, and now we begin slowly to know the history of a human being, of what is now going on in Africa. So Papua actually is a small Africa. My lecturer told me that Africa, the European colonizer, carried like a piece of pie, and West Papua at the moment is on a similar position. So, for example, I give you, there is a birthmark here. Here, maybe you could see it. This is the birthmark. So, on the western side, where the Dutch New Guinea is, as soon as we were born, they gave us this black mark like animals in the farm, western farm. So, if you cross another border, they know that you are from another farmer. So we are the animals from the Dutch colony. So if we cross to Papua New Guinea, they knew that we are Papuans. So the Germans occupied the area they created in Bougainville. And then later they gave the trust territory to Australia. And at the moment you can see how Australia is supporting all the war. But Australia ignore what's going on in the Pacific. So let me go back to the Bill of Law, because the area is considered to be a very backward area. So therefore they have five plans program to develop West Papua. But as the freedom fighters or human rights abuses was so high, has been so high, taking place in West Papua. So human rights issue become an issue by local NGOs, but also the West Papuan freedom fighters. Therefore, they form what is known as special autonomy to develop Papua and to care or to look after the culture, freedom of religion, because it is based on what they call Panchasila, to recognize or to uphold the issue of human rights. And so they put it in this bill of law that I mentioned to you, that it will be implemented, and slowly they will carve up the island. So at the time, Manokwari, which is now West Papua, to be the following provinces, and slowly based on this Article 76 on this one, that the province will be carved according to all the agreement with what they call special
Autonomy.
Majelis Rakyat Papua, so a special representative based on religion and culture only so under the agreement. But the reality is the natural resources, as Freeport, for example, have been taken out from the country, and the division of the islands is not supported by the representative through the MRP. And the most interesting case now is there is no longer, so from the first province, West Papua, from Papua become West Papua, then now it becomes Southwest Papua, which is based in Sorong, and Central Papua, and it goes to Northwest Papua. So that it becomes 5 provinces now. The reason is slowly they are bringing
divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. That's one of the main reasons.
That's correct. That's correct. And also, gold, Holufial gold, is a very big business. We are going to talk about Wabo, a case later on. But the outpouring of what they call spontaneous migrants to Papua now, we become, I think Jim or some other experts from New South Wales and Sydney University.
No, Papuans have become the minority in West Papua.
That's correct. So
yes.
Now it is, we are already 40%, the Indonesians are 60%.
Yes. Yes.
We are marginalized. And they knew that the struggle of West Papua is getting stronger in terms of recently 2 lawyers. We are going to talk about those 2 lawyers are very critical of the implementation of special autonomy, that it has failed, totally failed. And they knew that history, as Brother Luis has mentioned, that we are going to bring this issue alive to like not the education that we are doing now. We are going to raise the issue. The Indonesians are also interested on this. So
yes, Mr. Hank,
sure that
Mr. Hank, excuse me there. I want to go into a subject real quickly. I want to stay on the same page that you're talking about, because welcome to the Trevor Goody from the show. We're talking about the history of the struggle of the Papuans. And if you don't know where West Papua is, it's in the Pacific Islands. And people looking like myself are the ones that are there, Black people. Okay. Jim, I have a question for you. I'm going to read something here real quickly. What is Australia Day celebrated for? Australia Day holiday, January 26th, honoring the establishment of the first permanent European settlement on the continent of Africa. on January 26, 1788. Arthur Phillip, who sailed into what is now Sydney Cove with a ship, and don't forget this part, because this is how America was also established. Christopher Columbus himself also came into America with a shipload of convicts. Okay, where they hoisted the British flag at the site. So I want to speak a little bit about this holiday that Australia is getting ready to celebrate. But before we do that, I want to show some pictures. Okay, you're going to say what you have to say about the holiday, and then I'm going to show some pictures. Jim, can you speak to us a little bit more about this?
Hank, thank you for what you've just said, and Trevor also. You know, I'm going to be honest. I have absolutely no idea what Australia Day is celebrated for. I have not celebrated Australia Day for 40 years, and I will not celebrate Australia Day because it is Invasion Day for the Indigenous First Nation people here. It is a day that cemented a criminal act stating that this land had no nation owned this Indigenous land. It was taken over by the British Empire, which led to exactly the same thing that has happened in West Papua, exactly the same thing that happened in East Timor, exactly the same things that happened in Africa, India, etc., etc. Everywhere there has been an empire, everywhere an empire of trade and political convenience. It is this bottom line. Can we get away with it? And that is the basis of Australia Day. Can we get away with it? Many people in Australia have been saying for a long time, even decades now, that no, we don't want to get away with it. We want to acknowledge what has happened. We want governance that is respectful and proper duty of care, not just nationally but internationally. So I believe Australia Day this week is going to be marked by tremendous rallies and demonstrations that see January 26 as Invasion Day, and why shouldn't they? You know, it's the First Nation people are now 3% of the population, and subjected to incarceration rates and poverty that the white population don't experience. So breeding out the colour, stolen children. That's an interesting one because that's happened in East Timor and West Papua, and probably still happens in West Papua. And it was an easy one for Australian prime ministers to do their public relations and say, hey, we can get some mileage out of this, and maybe that's going to be good for our next federal election campaign. You know, if the Australian government was serious about what Australia Day represents, we wouldn't be having it.
That's a very great point, because what we want to do is we want to challenge the government of Australia. We want to challenge the people of Australia, which I know quite a few Australians, and they're all good people. They're all good people from my experience. So we want to challenge the people to make sure that the government does what's right.
We get back to this bottom line, and these people, our government leaders, they cannot divorce themselves from this bottom line. Can we get away with this? And that has marked global governance and imperialism for thousands of years. Can we get away with this? And the UN Secretariat, even in the case of West Papua, put up a sign in front of the Trusteeship Council, not open for business ever again. not open for business. When it concerns West Papua, we're not here. And that's, you know, that's the influence of geopolitical convenience and economic exploitation. In fact, there was one famous Australian politician, I believe he's still with us, who coined the phrase or used the phrase an awful lot, particularly during the East Timor War of Liberation, economic pragmatism. Economic pragmatism, as if the cost of economic pragmatism being 1/3 of the population in East Timor, and that was very easy to establish due to Portuguese census details and the Indonesian census details. It was a 5-year-old could have gone through that and established that. Yes, 1/3 of the population vanished after the Indonesian invasion. It's more difficult to establish the population stats for Western New Guinea, but it is undeniable that hundreds of thousands have vanished, hundreds of thousands of victims to that same ideology, that predatory capitalism, predatory communism, and you know, predators. Can we get away with this? So and that's why I've put out this letter of demand to the Governor General, to the Australian Attorney General, alleging that, well, you know, to be honest, we should be able to say, hey guys, we don't like your policy. We think your policy stinks and it's wrong and you need to change it, and they should change it. But we can't do that, and we can't take them to court over that. But we can if we find specific acts of criminal governance, and that happened in 1969 with the prevention of those two West Papuan leaders seeking to reach the UN in New York. It happened in 1998 with the Biak Island massacre, where the Australian government sent an intelligence officer to Biak Island less than 2 weeks after the massacre. To see if, hey, did the massacre really happen? And the intelligence officer's 7-page report discloses that, hey, yeah, it's, you know, it did happen. And guess what? Our C-170s, or whatever they're called, you know, the aircraft that we've gifted the Indonesian armed forces, they transported the 600 Indonesian military to Biak Island for the massacre. This intelligence officer was even handed a roll of film depicting the victims of that massacre. That roll of film was taken to Canberra by the intelligence officer. So 1998, we've got an act of criminal governance in contravening the Commonwealth Criminal Code and contravening all the international covenants that Australia is signatory to. You know, Genocide Convention and all that, knowledge of a crime, knowledge of a crime against humanity, etc., etc. But what did they do? They were silent. That's a crime in itself, with knowledge of a crime against humanity. And in 2014, they destroyed the roll of film because there was a Sydney University tribunal on the Biak Island massacre, and the conclusions and recommendations of that tribunal came out the day before in December 2013, the day before Parliament House went on vacation, or the day after, and said, yes, there was a massacre. Yes, we've got this intelligence office report. Yes, there was a roll of film. What happened to it? Why are the government silence on this? There needs to be accountability. So what does the government do?
One of the reasons is because they are in cahoots with each other. You understand what I'm saying? They're in cahoots with each other. So that's why one government is going to be silent when another one is violating a human right.
Well, you know, I want to want to present you a symbol, Trevor. Many people across the United States will be aware of this symbol, and that's the flag of freedom in the flag of American freedom in the Second World War, being raised by those heroes of World War II, being raised. You know that symbol, right? Yes. Well, I'm wondering, those troops that fought in that war, those troops that fought across the island of New Guinea, the entire island of New Guinea, where there was a Papuan infantry battalion, where there were Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels, where both American and Australian troops were saved by Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels and the Papuan infantry battalion, etc. You know, my uncle was one of the rats of Tobruk, but he also fought across New Guinea. And I'm sure if he was alive today, he and his colleagues, his fellow diggers, they would be wondering what happened to our politicians, because they fought in a war for freedom. They didn't fight to have politicians misrepresent what freedom was all about for other people. They didn't fight to have politicians misrepresent an entire electorate and have us, the electorate, also guilty of complicity in genocide, as the electorate has been in East Timor and West Papua.
No. That's why they also say that when you're silent, you end up being an accomplice. Just by being silent and not saying anything. And this is how in our silence, governments can represent us in a negative way under our names, especially because we're silent.
I'm going to ask Hank and Lewis what they think about the text on your screen right now, Trevor. It's got Free West Papua, Papua and Merdeka. Indonesia must be charged with human rights violations. So I'm going to ask Hank and Lewis what they think about the government of Indonesia, the Republic of Indonesia, having a 40-strong team at the United Nations, being this year elected to be a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council. How do you feel about that? The government of Indonesia, which is not signatory to the Rome Agreement or to all the international covenants on human rights. How do you feel about that?
All right, before we're going to let each one of you, we have another 13 minutes left on the show. Before you guys answer that question, I want to play a video and show some pictures. And we want to let everyone know, look, some of the pictures that we're going to show you here, you know, we're not going to censor them. If there are any children in the room, please don't let them watch any of this. So what you're seeing there, this is what happens after that. Some of these pictures are very graphic.
Trevor,
we're talking about women being mutilated. We're talking about men and women. These pictures that you're looking at, you would think that this is from the 1920s or the 1914s or something like that, but these are things that are happening right now in West Papua New Guinea.
And these are images that have been presented over the last 2 years to every parliamentarian in Canberra, and there is not one word from them, apart from perhaps the Australian Greens have mentioned a couple of things. David Pocock has asked me if I'm part of his electorate. You know what? I don't need to be part of any electorate. This is a responsibility for every parliamentarian in every country and it's got nothing to do with being part of an electorate. It's got everything to do with stopping genocide, ethnocide, infanticide, and crimes against humanity. And it's got everything to do with getting Indonesia out of West Papua. It doesn't belong to them. It never did belong to them. A 5-year-old can recognise the farce about this. It is a farce. And for Freeport, the American government, the UK, France, the Australian government to say our sources can't confirm this. It's just a game to them, and I'm not sure if we will ever stop their game of can we get away with this.
No. We're going to stop them, Jim. We're going to stop them. That's why we're having these conversations here now, because we're shedding light on what's happening in West Papua, where what we call mainstream media, they're not talking about these issues. So, Lewis, to the question, free West Papua, Papua Merdeka, Indonesia must be charged with human rights violations. What is, to the question that Jim was asking, what is your thoughts on that?
Indeed. I think I totally agree. Indonesia must be charged with a human rights violation. Like it is not like 40 or 50 years ago where we can't hear news about West Papua. As we all know, currently Indonesia has banned foreign media and journalists to go to West Papua. With the current technology, the people of West Papua have access to social media now, like Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. They're able to inform the international community about what's actually happening on the ground, and the killings and its human rights violations that are happening in West Papua. So it's shameful, very shameful when Indonesia goes to UN in front of, all the world leaders and tell them about how they are, doing well in West Papua, when in reality on the ground it's totally opposite. So, I mean, Indonesia being part of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, how do they feel when these images and stories being conveyed to UN? So it's a total hypocrisy of Indonesia being part of this special UN Human Rights Committee, when in fact they're actually committing a serious human rights violation in West Papua. And also, if we look at the issue of Palestine, where Indonesia is so vocal on trying to get this issue raised at UN, when in reality they're also committing human rights violation in West Papua. So it's a total hypocrisy of Indonesian government trying to be nice in front of world leaders, when in fact they are committing serious human rights violation against the people of West Papua, and they should be tried in the International Court of Justice, like currently.
But Lewis, colonizers do that everywhere. I'll give you an example. We have Canada, for an instance, where they talk about human rights when they are in places like Honduras, literally killing people. So, but again, mainstream media don't talk about these things, and people don't research to look at Indonesia, who's talking about all of the atrocities in the Gaza, right? When they are committing the worst of atrocities in West Papua right now, as we speak.
Indeed. I think intentional media, especially the mainstream media, have failed badly in their part in trying to inform the international community about what's actually happening in West Papua, and we can't really blame the world, or about not knowing about what's happening there in West Papua. And
Yeah.
I felt the international media, especially the mainstream media in US, in Europe, are not actually playing the part in telling, informing the international community well about the truth about what's actually happening in West Papua. So we need them to actually being truthful in what they're reporting. If they are, for example, now in with the Palestinian conflict, we can see such media like Al Jazeera, they actually conveying or informing the world about the truth about Palestine. But we're hoping that others will do the same as well.
In time, we just need to keep talking about it. Welcome to the Trevor Griffin Show. Brother Hank, the same question to you. Free West Papua, Papua Merdeka. Indonesia must be charged with human rights violations. What do you say to
Yeah.
that?
So this is based on the history. There is so much interest. We see what Netanyahu stated clearly recently. Now, Indonesia and Israel are playing a very important role. They are exactly the same thing. When we met Obama on a special hearing in the United States, we wanted to see him. I was one of the representatives to see him, and he made it very clear. My brother, Indonesia is playing a very important role in this region. I'm sorry, I'm not going to see you guys. Now, Indonesia is very good. On the committee of 24 or any political meeting, majority of those nations, Indonesia has brought them. Look at the Solomon Islands, for example, or Vanuatu recently. They are bribing the political leaders. So when it comes to Melanesian Spearhead Group, for example, Papua New Guinea, the prime minister, the very corrupt prime minister at the moment, he was offer scholarship to Papua New Guinean students. At the same time, they deported our students from America, Europe, and also Australia to return because they have lack of fund. Now, Indonesia is very good of buying those states to be part of the human rights bodies. And this is the biggest influence. And you see, those South Pacific islands are very poor economically. So Indonesia, especially like Vanuatu or Solomons, when the natural disasters come, they are giving money and they are buying these votes, including our brothers in Nigeria and other parts in Africa. So UN is a place like what Israel is playing now. We cannot get into the bodies. We have no right to get there because they are buying the votes and they are controlling it. So it's a big cloud at the moment that we have to go through, like the issue of the Palestine and the issue of Ukraine, for example. The hypocrisy of the European society to support that war, but they are always looking after the inheritance of Christianity from the Israel, like being led by Netanyahu, this most racist leader in this planet.
Thank you, Brother Hank. Guys, we're bringing this show to a close. Brother Hank, we want to thank you for being here. Louis, this always moves pretty quick. Jim, this always moves pretty quick. I want to say rest in peace, Leone Tagama. I want to close this conversation out with each one of you saying a word about Leone. Leone was one of the individuals that brought me, along with Daniel and Wambuno, out of the United States of Africa into this struggle of West Papua. I became a Papuan because of Leone Tagama. And I want to thank her, one, for her feminine energy, for her persistence, and even beyond the space of quote unquote death, she is still here with us. Jim, your closing remark, if you could say something about Leone, may she long live.
In all honesty, I never knew Leone. Deepest respect, but never knew her. Instead, I'm going to say what I didn't say at the very beginning, and I should have. I acknowledge the traditional owners, the Indigenous owners of the land that I live in, and all Indigenous people around the world. I pay respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. And Trevor, Hank, Lewis. Trevor, you stated some kind words, but I'm not a scholar. I'm preceded by many. I'm not a scholar. I'm an activist, and I'm preceded by many wonderful people who have joined all these dots. Caucasian like me, I don't see colour. I don't see colour. We're all brothers and sisters, regardless. But many wonderful people are focused on freedom in West Papua, and we will reach it. They cannot get away with this bottom line forever. Can't get away with it. No, you can't.
Thank you for that land acknowledgement. And I also want to do a little land acknowledgement of the Coast Miwok right here in California, where I'm currently at. It was the Coast Miwok who were the Aboriginal peoples of this land. So, Hank, thank you for that land acknowledgement all the way there in Australia. Louis, your thought about Leone Tagama? You're muted.
Audio.
There you go. We can't hear you, Brother Lou. We cannot hear you, Louis.
Yeah,
Now,
Leonie was a very inspirational person to me. I've learned a lot from her. She was the one that sort of introduced me to this media about how to talk about West Papua and what I should say in the media and all that. So her passing was so sad. We terribly missed her, and her legacy will be always remembered uh, throughout West Papua. And yeah, I mean, you cannot have somebody like her, to replace the legacy. And we wish that there will be more Leonis in West Papua and also in PNG that would rise up to be vocal and support the struggle of the West Papuan people. And yeah, pay a special tribute to her and also to her family as well in Netherlands. I wasn't able to meet her in person, but I've heard a lot about her through communicating through social media like WhatsApp and Facebook. And she's a very beautiful person, and I want to pay this special tribute to her. Long live Leonie.
thank you, Brother Lewis. Brother Hank, your closing comment and your word on Leonie Tegama. May she rest in peace.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Trevor. Thank you for taking us to raise the West Papuan issue, to keep it alive. Particularly Leonie, yes, she's special. She's special because the background she has from directly from the father, and she's strong. Not only strong, but she is very peaceful, very smart. She speaks more than 6 languages, including the most important one, English and French, and intelligent. Like Luis has mentioned, she is irreplaceable, if I put it in English. So far, we don't have multilingual speakers like her. And more than that, intelligent. What is, I learned a lot from her, although she's younger. And before she knows me on some other international opportunities, she thought I'm going to be dominated like other elders in the history. But she learns a lot, and our conversation, I still kept them until today. Sometimes I thought she is still alive, but yes, we need somebody like Leonie, being a female, to stand, to be strong, because the struggle needs smart people like her, like our younger generation, like Louis and others. We need those people, including Jeffrey Pomanak. We need those smart generation to continue the struggles, because it's not an easy struggle. And we need people, of course, like you, Brother Trevor, and Jim, and other people.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Because one of the things to success, I'm actually at a function right here in Northern California, and one of the speakers said today that the pathway to success is to work with others. Right? So I'm a Garifuna man from the Caribbean. Jim, you are a Caucasian brother from Australia. And here we are. We're fighting along with the Papuans. It doesn't matter that I'm a Garifuna man from the Caribbean. It doesn't matter to Jim that he's a Caucasian brother from Australia. It doesn't even matter to him at all. It doesn't matter to us. If we're going to be successful in decolonizing our minds, if we're going to be successful in decolonizing the world, we have to collaborate with each other and understand that not every person that looks like that is like that, right? Yeah. So, Leonie, you brought us together. May you rest in peace. Men and women out there, let's empower the women. If we empower the women, we're going to rectify all of the issues that we have on this earth, because they approach things from yes, emotional, and maybe that's what's lacking with us as men and making this world such a corrupt place, is that we're not emotional enough, we're not empathetic enough, right? So if we empower those emotional women, those empathetic women, they're going to raise the children in the proper path of going, right? So Jim, thank you for being on the Trevor Good Evening Show. Lewis, thank you again. Brother Hank, this is not going to be the last of it. This is my first time having you as a guest, and we look forward to having you again in the near future.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So we want to close out by saying Papua Merdeka.
Merdeka.
Papua Merdeka.
Papua Merdeka, yeah.